Many people have this idea that if you're an organic farmer, and we get this a lot because we grow our fruits and vegetables organically, is that if you're an organic farmer, you must be a farmer who comes to his farm, scatters some seeds around, and then one fine day, these seeds they become vegetables and fruit trees, and all that you need to do is come with your cute little basket and start harvesting from these vegetables and fruit trees. So the idea here is that the organic food is somehow grown without any human intervention or with very little human intervention. That the organic food is grown naturally. There is nothing further from the truth. Food, whether it's vegetables, whether it's fruits, nothing can be grown naturally, nothing can be grown without human intervention. All the fruits and vegetables that you grow on the farm, whether you grow them organically, whether you grow them chemically, whether you grow them through whatever agricultural practices that you are following, you have to come in, you have to intervene, you have to manipulate nature, and most importantly, you need to ensure, the farmer needs to ensure that the bugs do not get to the fruits and vegetables that he's growing before he does. So these behind me are the raspberry and the blackberry terraces, and over here this year we were able to harvest almost about 100 kgs of raspberries and blackberries, and we were able to do this only because we were able to control the pest infestation that we faced on the blackberries and the raspberries. So this video documents on how we were able to control the pest infestation on our raspberries and on our blackberries. The means of course were organic, but it did involve, I must underline that, it did involve the destruction of a lot of living beings. I say that because a lot of people in the vegan community tend to think that organic food is food which is grown without animal cruelty, without destruction of animals, without destruction of living beings. Now that is not possible. If you're going to be growing, if you're going to be having any raspberries, blackberries, whatever you're growing on the farm, it does involve the destruction of a lot of living beings. These are critters, and these critters feed on our food that we produce over here, whether they are fruits or they are vegetables. If a farmer has to harvest anything from his farm, whether he's an organic farmer, whether he's a chemical farmer, he needs to get rid of these pests. So this video will come in handy if you're growing things organically on your farm, particularly if you're growing the raspberries and the blackberries. Here we are preparing a deadly concoction for a particularly pernicious pest called the Japanese beetle. All you need is a white container into which you put water, and in this water you add some detergent, and this soapy water is going to be the demise of the Japanese beetles. So very simply, we took this container with soapy water and placed it under the blackberries and the raspberries, and violently shook the branches so that these Japanese beetles sitting on these branches and the leaves of the raspberries and the blackberries fall into this soapy mix and basically die. Now this is the handiwork of the Japanese beetle if left unattended. So these are the Japanese beetles dead or dying in this soapy mix. So this is how we trap the Japanese beetle manually. This is like almost like hand picking the Japanese beetle off the raspberry beds. Raspberries are more vulnerable than the blackberries to the Japanese beetles, as are the grapes and as are the cherries. Cherries, grapes, and the raspberry leaves, they are the ones favored by the Japanese beetle. And what we do is we come in the evening, and we come in the evening because the Japanese beetle are somewhat sluggish in the evening. They cannot cling very tightly to the leaves. So when you shake the leaves like that, they can fall into any tumbler that you carry. The tumbler that I have over here has water with detergent in it, which will drown the Japanese beetle. Now, this is the hand picking method of getting rid of the Japanese beetle. This is the best method if you can do it every day, because you don't have to come in and spray on every plant. Even if it's an organic spray, it can be somewhat hazardous to the pollinators. So now this is one method. Then if you wonder what this bottle is over here, this bottle here is a trap. It's a pheromone trap for the SWD fly, which infests the raspberries. What these SWD fly do is they lay eggs in the ripening raspberries. The ripening raspberries, then when they ripen, they become the food source for these eggs, which turn into worms. They are small, very tiny, wriggly worms inside the raspberries that you can find if you do not have traps like these, or if you do not do any kind of an adequate sanitization of the orchard. The simplest method is to pick your raspberries as soon as they ripen, because the SWD flies, they prefer ripening raspberries. So this method is a manual method of taking care of the Japanese beetle, which feed on the leaves of the raspberries, and this bottle over here takes care of the SWD fly, which feeds on the fruit itself, which lays eggs inside the raspberries themselves. So this is how we made the pheromone traps for the SWD flies, or the spotted winged Drosophila flies, at home. So you need a couple of things. You need plastic bottles and you need something to punch holes in them. In our case, we had our barbecue skewers and we used them. We heated them first and then we punctured 3 to 4 holes into the top half of these plastic bottles. 3 to 4 holes, because you want the tiny SWD flies to enter these holes and not any beneficials. The holes done, you start making the deadly concoction, which in our case we used apple cider vinegar, and we filled 1/3 of the bottle with it, and we added some liquid soap, detergent in our case. And then finally, the last and the third ingredient into this mix that we are preparing, this deadly concoction that we are preparing for the SWD fly, is sugar. You can also add jaggery if you like. And armed with these pheromone traps, we went to the raspberry terraces and we tied them roughly about 1.5 feet from the ground and very close to the bushes, rather in a shaded part of the terrace where they are easily accessible to the SWD fly. We tied them there, left them there for the SWD fly to just enter these holes that we punctured in these traps. Now, this can possibly happen to ripening raspberries if they are left unattended. The SWD fly is going to lay eggs inside the raspberries, and you'll have these larvas all over the insides of the raspberries, eating them inside out. But if you have set these pheromone traps, then the SWD fly is going to be attracted by the pheromone and enter these bottles through the holes that you have made and drown in this deadly concoction that we have prepared for it. Now, if you cannot access apple cider vinegar for whatever reason, and like us, if you run out of it, you can try the second best option to prepare these pheromone traps. So this time we prepare the pheromone by using rotting apple, we use some sugar syrup, we use some detergent, and we use some yeast, added some sugar to the mix, and that became a pheromone trap, the second best option of how to trap the SWD fly. You have to, of course, change the solution, this concoction that you've made, these pheromones that you've made after every week if you're using apple cider vinegar, detergent, and sugar. And you'll have to change it twice a week if you're not using apple cider vinegar.